The collection will try to cut off the head and leave the tail. If you enjoy watching, please support by liking, sharing and commenting. Friendly reminder. This is definitely the scariest horror movie from Thailand in recent years. It is also the only one that had the cinema play with the lights on throughout. Yet there were still people screaming in fright. A movie that caused some to faint. The Medium uses a mock documentary shooting style. It allows for an immersive experience, hitting the soul with fear. The film begins with a strange family. All the women in this family believe in spirits. They sincerely worship and pray every day. They do good deeds for the villagers without asking for anything in return. However, none of the men in the family have a good ending. For example, this woman named Aunt May. In just the past few years, uncle committed suicide by poisoning after failing an insurance scam. The nephew also died in a car accident a few years ago. Just recently, even, she just learned about her brother-in-law's death, but this time it was due to cancer. But strangely enough, people around her have been dying one after another. Yet the women at home are completely unfazed. Sister May is healthy and well. Niece Shaman is also growing up healthy. Perhaps it's the blessing of the spirits. That is why they have continued to live safely and soundly. In reality, Aunt May has another identity. She is the guardian of the Bayang spirit. She prays in the name of the Bayang spirit to the heavens, offering sacrifices to the spirits to ensure the peace of the entire village. Therefore, Aunt May is also referred to as the medium by the villagers. At the same time, this news caught the attention of local paranormal media, so they traveled here from afar to interview Aunt May for 2.5 months. They used cameras to document Aunt May's daily prayers and her thoughts on this work. After Aunt May learned of her brother-in-law's death, they would also follow her to attend the funeral. The atmosphere here is very heavy. Everyone is feeling sorry for my brother-in-law to die of cancer at such a young age. But for my father's death, Xiao Mei doesn't seem sad at all. She has been looking around in the same spot, and she even showed a nonchalant smile. Even at the end of the funeral in the evening, she suddenly changed her demeanor. What were you just saying? Say it again. I didn't say anything. It's none of your business. Are you talking behind my back? Who said anything bad about you? No one was even talking just now. He is cursing at me. I didn't say anything. He said I'm AJGIRL. Aunt May quickly stepped forward to stop it. Other relatives immediately rushed over to hold Xiao Mei back. But Xiao Mei seemed to be possessed at that moment. She fiercely bit onto the other person and wouldn't let go, until her mother repeatedly comforted her. This matter finally came to an end. But it was precisely the niece's unusual behavior that made Aunt May unable to help but wonder. She must have attracted some kind of evil spirit. Sure enough, that very night, Aunt May was getting ready for bed when she suddenly saw a familiar figure. It was Xiao Mei sitting still not far away, as if she were staring at something. No matter how Aunt May called her, she received no response at all. Then, she saw an old lady with her eyes rolled back suddenly appear right in front of her. Aunt May was instantly terrified at the sight, but the old lady did not harm her. Instead, she turned and left, thinking that after tonight, everything would return to normal. Little did she expect that just after one night, the old lady suddenly died. No one knew how she had died. Just when Aunt May was filled with doubt, she turned around, and unexpectedly saw Xiao Mei's figure again. She stood there motionless. Her eyes were fixed intently on the old man. It was as if she had seen something terrifying. After seeing Aunt May, she turned and left again. Aunt May felt it was rather strange, so she hurriedly chased after her. But unexpectedly, Xiao Mei actually stopped in the backyard of the temple, and she kept saying something to the door. Watching Xiao Mei's unusual behavior, Aunt May finally realized that she was possessed by something. To verify her suspicion, Aunt May immediately searched around Xiao Mei's room. Sure enough, it was here. She found a string of yellow ginger used for exorcism. At last, Aunt May's suspicion was confirmed. But before she could bring it up, Xiao Mei burst in directly and drove them all out. This scene was truly spectacular. I really want to drive to the scene to see it. Speaking of the car, I recently bought a Tesla Model 3 from Guazi Used Cars. I got a 2021 model Tesla Model 3. I didn't expect to only spend 99,000 yuan. That's over 130,000 yuan cheaper than new car. But it drives just like new. New cars are depreciating quickly now. Buying from Guazi is very cost-effective. Every car at Guazi undergoes official professional inspection. You can even test drive for 3 days, so you can buy with confidence. Guazi cars are economical. You can also get a Tesla for 29,000 yuan. Don't miss out. In the following days, Xiao Mei's behavior became increasingly strange. She was wearing children's shoes. She was running around like a child. And the originally introverted her also started partying late at night. It seemed like she didn't know what being tired was at all. Even her previously monthly period changed to almost once a day. Additionally, while playing with kids, one moment she seemed fine. The next moment her expression darkened instantly. Then she suddenly pushed the little girl to the ground. But immediately after that, she regained her previous smile once again. Even in just a few days, Xiao Mei often dreamed of a strong man holding a huge sword. He was also carrying a bloody head in his hand. Even more strangely, the filming crew followed her for 24 hours every day. But from the surveillance footage of her workplace, she brought different men to the company almost every night. She brought different men to the company. And even in the end, Xiao Mei exhibited severe self-harm behavior. Witnessing such a strange scene with her daughter, Ah Mei couldn't help but feel dazed. A man told her that Xiao Mei was chosen by the god of Bayang, which was why all these strange phenomena occurred. However, Ah Mei didn't believe it at all, because just before this, the god of Baiyang had actually chosen her as a vessel, but she didn't want to be possessed by the god of Baiyang, so she forcibly converted to Christianity. Therefore, out of necessity, the god Baiyan chose Aunt Mei. However, it seems now, the god Baiyan does not intend to spare Aim's family, and even attempted to possess Xiao Mei. After this incident, Aim is already in a dilemma. Her daughter is in such a serious condition. She has no way out at all. So in order to save her daughter, she sought out an unknown sorcerer to perform a spirit summoning ritual for her daughter. But the ritual had only just begun, when Aunt Mei suddenly barged in and interrupted them. How can you perform the ritual so casually? She might be possessed by an evil spirit. What else can I do? She's about to die. The two were arguing more fiercely over here, but Xiao Mei beside them suddenly looked at the cameraman, and then rushed over to snatch the camera. Xiao Mei, stop, Xiao Mei. Xiao Mei. The villagers were trembling in fear from this scene. Mother was also knocked unconscious on the ground by her, but Xiao Mei pretended as if nothing happened. She immediately ran out of the house. Seeing this situation, Aunt Mei quickly chased after her, but the whole village searched all night, yet they could not find Xiao Mei's shadow again. For this reason, Aunt Mei could only seek help from the Baiyang god. She took a Mei and went to the mountains. She presented a fruit platter to the Baiyang god. Only then did they finally get a clue. Soon after, Aunt Mei began to perform rituals under the big tree. She walked back and forth with an egg in every direction. As long as the egg that was broken was black, they could determine Xiao Mei's location. After performing the rituals for 49 days, Aunt Mei finally broke out a black egg, but the location of the egg was at Xiao Mei's grandfather's factory. The place was filled with crows and the atmosphere was grim. The room was filled with burn marks everywhere. Surely, something strange must have happened. Aunt Mei searched here for a long time. Only then did she finally find a shadow of Xiao Mei in the garbage pile at the back of the second floor. She discovered Xiao Mei's figure, but at this moment, Xiao Mei had completely fallen into a coma. Fortunately, Aunt Mei managed to take her to the hospital in time. They finally saved her life. Afterwards, to thank the Baiyang god, Aunt Mei brought a fruit platter to the mountain. But when she reached the statue, she suddenly let out a hysterical scream. She saw that the head of the Baiyang god had been cut off by someone, though she did not know who. This shocking scene resembled the vision Xiao Mei had seen in her dreams. Perhaps the reason Xiao Mei was able to return alive was entirely due to the Baiyang god secretly helping her. It had been fighting against the evil spirit within Xiao Mei, but it could not defeat the opponent, directly decapitated by the evil spirit, and that black egg is the last clue it left for Aunt Mei. But Aunt Mei was unaware of this. They believed, since Xiao Mei had already returned alive, there would eventually be an improvement. However, Xiao Mei's condition was far worse than they imagined. Taking advantage of the dead of night, she began to wander around the house again. Her behavior was extremely strange. Like a starving mad dog, she kept rummaging through the raw meat in the fridge, and stuffing it into her mouth uncontrollably. The dog at home only barked a few times, and she directly cooked it and ate it. Watching the video from last night, Ah Mei felt a chill run down her spine. She immediately went to find Aunt Mei, to ask her to perform a ritual to exorcise the evil for Xiao Mei. But at this moment, Xiao Mei already had a dark complexion and no trace of color in her face. Upon seeing Aunt Mei arrive here, he wildly laughed maniacally at the other person. As the situation became increasingly dire, Aunt Mei had no choice but to have the two hold Xiao Mei down tightly. Then, she wrapped white rope around her head, and placed her fingers into the cup. As she continuously chanted the incantation, Xiao Mei's fingertips suddenly began to ooze a large amount of black water. Immediately after, the cup exploded. Xiao Mei immediately spat out a mouthful of black blood. The situation gradually calmed down, but in reality, Xiao Mei was only temporarily suppressed. If the evil spirit within her is not removed, the consequences would be unimaginable. For this reason, Aunt Mei first tied up Xiao Mei. Then she came before a master to seek help, and the master truly lived up to his title. He merely touched Xiao Mei's head lightly, and he immediately knew that Ah Mei had taken her to perform a spirit summoning ritual. At the same time, everyone finally understood. It turns out that the reason Xiao Mei became like this is because she fell under a certain family curse. The factory that Aunt Mei had visited before was actually run by Xiao Mei's grandfather. However, due to a bizarre fire, it resulted in the grandfather and all the workers in the factory dying tragically. Those workers were unable to peacefully reincarnate. They could only transform into vengeful spirits, seeking retribution year after year. And everyone related to the grandfather would inevitably die in strange ways. First it was Xiao Mei's father, then it was her brother, finally it was Xiao Mei herself. Initially, this situation wasn't too serious, but later, due to a Mei casually finding someone to conduct a spirit summoning ceremony, it effectively opened a door for Xiao Mei's body. Any demons or spirits could freely possess her. Now the only solution is to quickly hold an exorcism for her. The master originally intended to ask Aunt Mei to assist on the side, but the next morning, when everyone found her again, they discovered that Aunt Mei was already lying on the bed, and had already passed away. In desperation, the master had no choice but to step up himself. She first had her disciple put a hood on Xiao Mei, then she took her to the exorcism site. After that, the disciples began to continuously chant Buddhist scriptures. The master also danced in the air, and as the ceremony progressed, a sudden chilling wind swept through the surroundings. Even the torches within the formation began to flicker unpredictably. Just as the evil spirit was about to sweep in, The master immediately held Xiao Mei's head down. "Come over." Unexpectedly, the next second, Xiao Mei suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. A fit of hysterical screaming instantly echoed through the sky. The master saw that the evil spirit had possessed Xiao Mei. He immediately picked up the demon-slaying staff, directly beat the evil spirit until it is disoriented. But when he removed the mask, the person before him was not Xiao Mei, but her mother. She knew that her daughter had become this way, entirely because of her own doing. So she decided to take her daughter's place, and draw the evil spirit onto herself, ultimately collaborating with the master to completely eliminate it. But just as the master sealed the evil spirit into the altar began to tremble, and as the evil spirit struggled violently, Xiao Mei, far in the room, began to scream loudly again. She was sealed in a small dark room by the master with talismans. As long as nothing unexpected happened, the evil spirit would definitely be exorcised. But the aunt in charge of watching over Xiao Mei suddenly heard a sound of crying. Listening to this faint sound, she couldn't help but walk towards the nearby cradle, wanting to check if her child was still there. But there was nothing inside. The aunt suspected her child, at that moment, was locked in a room. She immediately asked her husband to open the door. However, when the photographer turned around, wasn't her child just lying peacefully in the cradle? Without a doubt, the aunt was confused by the evil spirit. She had gradually lost the ability to distinguish reality from illusion. She ignored the master's disciples' warnings. She directly picked up the vase and knocked him out. Then she forcefully pushed open the door. And it was at that moment, the jar on the master's side finally stopped. But at that time, he naively thought the evil spirit had been eliminated. Little did he know, in the next second, the scene was suddenly engulfed in darkness. The disciple immediately turned on the flashlight upon seeing this, but saw an incredibly terrifying scene. Master. 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 Master, what's wrong? But the master seemed to be deaf to it. He jumped straight down from above, and it was precisely this jump that shattered the jar directly. At the same time, it completely released the evil spirit. Other disciples were also caught up in it. They transformed into soulless zombies. The photographer was so frightened by this scene that he lost his wits. He desperately turned to run away. But those zombies were like monkeys leaping into the sky. They instantly appeared in front of the photographer. The photographer was so scared that he fell to the ground. Immediately, he was crazily bitten by the zombies. They grabbed his thigh and began to gnaw chaotically. His piercing screams echoed through the sky. But soon enough, that group of zombies suddenly stopped biting and obediently knelt down on the ground. The photographer was somewhat bewildered until he saw Xiao Mei appear in front of him. He finally understood. It turned out to be the leader of this group of zombies. It has arrived. Do you want me to take a picture for you? At this point, Mei, in order to eliminate the evil spirit, had no choice but to use a sacrificial method. She intended to offer everyone here to the god Bai Yang. In order to seek a glimmer of hope, she first lit the incense. Then she inserted it upside down into the incense burner. The disciples did not understand the reason behind it. Unexpectedly, the next second, as everyone danced wildly, the true god Bai Yang finally descended. It possessed Mei. It directly pressed down on Xiao Mei's head. But the evil spirit within Xiao Mei would not allow it to just defeat her that easily. It knew Mei had wronged her daughter, so it deliberately transformed into Xiao Mei's voice, pleading with her mother to let her go. After a few consecutive sentences, Mei finally let down her guard. But the next second, she was tightly choked by Xiao Mei. Immediately afterwards, the evil spirit that was previously residing in Xiao Mei also surged out at that moment. Instantly, numerous footprints appeared on the ground, surrounding Mei tightly. Then, Xiao Mei brought a bucket of gasoline and poured it all over her mother, attempting to burn her alive. But just as she was about to light it, she suddenly noticed there was still a fish that slipped through in the corner. While the photographer was escaping, used his last ounce of strength to ignite the gasoline. The mother and daughter perished in the sea of flames as a result, and that powerful evil spirit was finally burned to ashes by the fire. But the doll in the corner seemed to be signaling that this matter was far from over. Alright, today's story ends here. Subscribe to the channel to continue watching. See you next time.